Someday we'll be buried here, side by side, 6 feet under, in matching coffins, our lifeless bodies rotting together for all eternity.
Cara mia.
There's a good chance that many of you out there already are familiar with me. I'm Casey. You know me from the Bloody Good Horror Podcast, from the Instamatic, in 1951 Down Place. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, yet another podcast, Casey? Yes, I am. But little do any of you know, before my podcasting career started at Bloody Good Horror, I started podcasting about 2 years earlier, and right around 2005 with what could possibly be my greatest partner ever. Actually, I'm going to say definitely because I'm getting a look. But anyways, here at this new podcast called Cinema Fromage, this is our first episode, I am going to introduce you to my greatest podcasting partner ever, the Jen Schwalbach to my Kevin Smith, my wife, Colleen.
Hello.
Some of you out there have met my wife Colleen many times at Horror Hound Weekend, camping, things like that. And what was it, about 2005 or so? Mm-hmm. We started our first podcast called Midnight Muenster. It was on Blog Talk Radio. We recorded it by calling into a number and recorded it over the phone, and it sounded god-awful.
It was horrible.
Later on, we upgraded. Later on that year, we upgraded, and we started recording on the computer, like you're supposed to, and it worked out better. We called that Midnight Muenster. We were running it through our old blog, horror blog, Cinema Fromage, that I started right around the same time. And I don't know why we stopped. We just kind of got away from it.
Life happened.
Life did happen.
Yes.
So, but now we're back. It's only been 9 years.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, just a bit of a hiatus there. But now we're back, but we're back under a different name. If you've ever followed my blog, Cinema Fromage, back in the past, it was dedicated to cheese, as the name would imply. Direct-to-video, B-movies, things like that. It was something I loved covering, but I ended up focusing all my writing those days, over time, to Bloody Good Horror. So, I want to keep the Cinema Fromage name alive, and the spirit of Cinema Fromage alive. So we have now the Cinema Fromage podcast, with my lovely assistant, Colleen.
Assistant?
My lovely partner, Colleen. She is an equal. I swear to God, she is an equal.
If not better. Magician, so.
If not better. She's at least equal, if not better. I take that back. I take back the assistant part, that is. So, here's our new show. We're going to be talking about B-movies, direct-to-video movies, things you're not going to see in the theater. Sometimes it's going to be brand new stuff. Sometimes it's going to be old stuff. Sometimes it's going to fall somewhere in between. Sometimes you'll have heard of it. Sometimes you won't. Maybe you'll find something new.
Yes.
So, now Colleen, let's tell our listeners here your background with the B-movie genre, because while I was the main force driving Cinema Fromage back in the day when it started, you were always there right by my side watching a lot of these horrible, horrible movies that I used to watch.
Yes. Well, we started out together watching horrible, horrible movies. All through our dating.
Yes.
And whatnot. That was pretty much what we would do.
Our very first date was Needful Things.
Yes.
I remembered.
Yes. And I had to feign being frightened in order to get you to hold my hand.
I know.
Which was kind of sad.
I wasn't the smooth operator that I am now, back in 1993. Colleen and I have been together we just had our 17th wedding anniversary this year.
Yes.
Earlier this month, even.
Yes.
And we've been together for 4 years before that, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I'm doing math on the fly. It's not that I don't remember. And as Colleen said, much of our recreational time over those years was watching bad movies.
Yes. It was back in the day when USA had USA Up All Night.
Yes.
And so that was pretty much what we would do after.
Because I think Up All Night started long before we met.
Oh yeah.
But I think the conversation went something like, "Oh, it's Friday night. What do you want to do?" I'm like, "Oh, I usually watch USA Up All Night." "Oh, you watch that too?"
Yes.
It's kind of started from there.
Yes.
There was some Joe Bob Briggs in there every once in a while. Colleen is the main influence that got me into X-Files.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I'd never watched it before until I met her, and she got me to sit down and watch it with her.
He led a very slow and sheltered life.
I had some moments in there. So as we, as the years went by, we got married, moved in together. We started watching a lot of these movies together. Back in the days where you didn't have digital cable, you didn't have plots and everything like that. You'd be flipping channels manually with your remote, and you'd come across something. You'd see a scene of something on the movie channel and say, "Whoa, that's weird," and sit down and watch it.
Which is how I ended up watching Spice World.
Yeah, twice. Spice World twice, thank you very much. But at the same time, it's the same reason that Colleen had to watch Six String Samurai at least a dozen times, because I stumbled across it that way and made her watch it a million times.
Yes.
Because unfortunately she doesn't love it quite as much as I do.
But
it's up there.
I like it.
She likes it, but not 12 times in a row liking it.
No.
Let's see. I remember when we first got our first apartment in Indianapolis. I believe it was Christmas that year. I bought you a DVD player, our first DVD player.
Yep. And that came with The Fifth Element.
Yep. And Starship Troopers.
Yes.
We did a lot of collecting and watching over the years.
Yes.
A lot through Netflix. Now, as of late, Colleen's interest in watching horrible movies has not been quite as strong as mine as of late. I took a step back as well, too, because I had about a 2-year hiatus there from Cinema Fromage, but I wasn't watching as many. But...
Well, I've been kind of stuck on watching PBS dramas.
And Bad Girls Club.
And Bad Girls Club. Yeah, I have a very eclectic taste in my shows.
Now, Fozzie, if you're out there, I'm talking to you. If you need somebody to talk about bad TV shows with you,
yes, Fozzie,
Colleen's available.
I'd be more than happy to talk with you about any terrible, horrible TV shows out there, because I watch a lot of TV.
Colleen's brought to my attention things like Prisoner of Cell Block H, an old Australian soap opera from like late 70s to early 80s.
Yes. Yes,
that is god-awful, but by God, I can't stop watching it.
Oh, it's wonderful. And I'd like to thank Sean Stump for introducing me to that when I was working at Beef and Board's Dinner Theater. So that was, wonderful. I mean, that's definitely BTV at its best.
It is. So, but here at Cinema Fromage, we're going to be talking about B-movies, as the name implies. Mm-hmm. We're getting back to our roots, where we started, and getting back and having fun with it. This show, we're not going to have a set schedule. The criteria for this show is it's got to be something that wasn't released theatrically. Something that's on video on demand, Netflix, things like that. Video rental, anything. The biggest thing, though, is it's got to be direct-to-video. It's got to be a B movie of some sort.
And it has to be one that neither one of us have seen.
Yes. And then also is the way we're doing this too is we're sitting down to record it as soon as we get done watching.
Yes.
So it's fresh in our minds and we're going straight into it.
Yes.
So
to me that's important, because otherwise I'll forget what I saw.
Yes.
Because I watch a lot of crap.
She does. And it all starts to blend together after a while.
It does.
So this is our first episode. We are reviewing the last showing that came out in 2014, starring Robert Englund and Finn Jones from Game of Thrones. And a few other people that you probably wouldn't recognize. It's directed, written, produced, edited, and everything by Phil Hawkins. And you can find it out around there on rental. And we'll get to it in just a minute. And we're going to take a brief break and let you listen to the trailer. And we'll be right back.
I watch people. Spent years looking down on them, observing what makes them laugh and cry, be shocked or scared. I decided I was going to make a horror film using real people. We must give the audience what they want.
There's this guy. He's got a camera. He's watching us. He's locked us in here.
What guy?
What's with the camera?
We are making a film.
I'm sorry I fired you.
You didn't fire me. I quit.
Where is she? How am I supposed to play your signal game if you don't tell me where she is? Just let us out there, please!
What are you doing?
You see, every horror film needs a victim. Please. My day, horror was all about what you didn't see. And that was scary. I'm so pleased I cast you. You look like perfect leading man material. And her, she's the girl next door. But have something to fight for, right? Presto. We've got a film.
I'll play along. I don't even think any of this is real. I'll pull this trigger and your whole game will be... Help! Please, help! I've done something so terrible.
All right, for our first film back after our many years hiatus, we're talking about The Last Showing. It came out in 2014, directed by Phil Hawkins, starring Robert Englund, Finn Jones, Emily Barrington, and a few others.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, you said it all.
I know. It seemed perfect, though, because this is a couple trapped in a movie theater, tormented by Robert Englund. And we're a couple that obviously likes movie theaters.
Do I want to go to this movie theater? They had a Ben and Jerry's in their lobby.
They did.
And it was a very nice lobby.
But they also had Robert Englund.
Yes.
Who you have a special affinity for.
Yes, for many years since V. Yes, I've always had a thing for Robert Englund. Even though he is now looking more like Stan Lee rather than the way he looked back in the 80s. But, you know, that's what happens in time.
I was a little shocked to see when I looked up tonight and saw that Robert Englund was almost 70 now.
Yes.
That's a little sad. But he's doing pretty good. So in The Last Showing, we have, as I said before, it's a couple trapped in a cinema are manipulated into becoming unwilling actors in a film captured by CCTV cameras. So, Robert Englund plays the projectionist at this theater. He talks like he's been there 25 years, I think he said a couple times.
Yeah.
And we have the whole setup.
Well, he's obviously been working in theater and movies for a very long time, and he's very disgruntled with the fact that he's still, as he put it, stuck with all these spotted teenagers as his superiors.
Well, he's being forced out because he is a projectionist in the classical sense with the film cameras and everything else, splicing film and all that good stuff, and he is being replaced by computers
Because of digital, yeah.
and spotted teenagers. So he's very unhappy with that. He's got a manager that's now that's maybe 20 years old, forcing him to sell popcorn, things like that. That's very undignified for Robert Englund's character of Stuart. And with his age, he comes up with a plan that he is done with doing this, and he has his master plan of what he's going to do.
Yeah. But it really... Okay, for me, it didn't... It was a great idea for a movie. It was a great process, but it wasn't executed well.
Yeah, it was executed. It's a toss up because this film looks very nice, It's very stylish. The camera work is very well done.
Yeah.
And things like that. But the movie itself, the pace drags along so slow that it was hard to get through.
Well, that and it just kind of happened. It wasn't, there wasn't a buildup, there wasn't a reason, and a lot of things didn't make sense.
Yeah, we open up with a very stylish montage at the beginning of Robert Englund doing his projectionist thing and whatnot, and then you see him as he has to go through the steps of putting on the little yellow vest and the crappy hat that goes with the uniform and starts, getting trained on the candy counter.
And in the same time, they're showing this couple on a date, and nowhere do these two paths ever cross. I mean, how he has this whole idea planned out, and it's all wrapped up in the fact that some couple is going to show up at this movie to view this midnight movie thing, and yet
well, it's important to note too,
it makes no sense. So
the entire time as we're seeing his montage in the beginning, we're seeing the couple's montage too between Finn Jones and Emily Barrington. Finn Jones is Sir Loras Tyrell on Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's why he had the curly hair.
Yes. So so we're watching their montage as well, which is a whole lot of Finn Jones trying to get it on with Emily Barrington and her shutting him down.
Yeah.
And then she's like, all of a sudden she's got these 2 tickets to go see The Hills Have Eyes 2, a film by Wes Craven.
And she makes a point, and this drove me insane because I thought this was I understand trying to give a nod to the fact that, tongue-in-cheek, that we have Robert Englund in this movie. And she's like, yeah, this was a Wes Craven movie, but before the Elm Street movies. And I'm like, why did we even have to mention this?
I know.
It's that AI thing that drives me insane, where in AI, they had the whole thing, they kept bringing up Pinocchio. And they kept slapping me in the face that this is a whole retelling of Pinocchio. And, we're not an idiotic audience. And most people who would have watched this movie are watching it because they see Robert Englund and they know Robert Englund played Freddy in the Nightmare on Elm Street. So why do we have to say, okay, we're going to The Hills Have Eyes, which was directed by Wes Craven, who made it pisses me off. I hate it when they make their audiences to be dumber than we actually are.
Yes. And then in my effort to make our audience, make us feel like that we're trying to make them feel dumber than they actually are. The movie itself that we're watching has nothing to do with Pinocchio, just in case you're confused.
Oh, that was AI that was about Pinocchio.
But anyways, so yes, they're trying very hard here to show that they are respectful to the horror genre and they're paying homage, and it's really across the bow. This girl that Emily Barrington plays, named Allie, she's all eager to go see The Hills Have Eyes 2 at this midnight showing. She's got these special tickets. The boyfriend doesn't want to go. He doesn't like horror movies, all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. They get there. So at first I'm starting to think, as this movie's setting up, that this is going to be something along the lines of the old film Popcorn the Movie. Do you remember that movie?
Vaguely.
With the people trapped in the theater and the killer running around, stuff like that. I was thinking maybe we get something like that with more of a slasher Robert Englund, but we don't. They're trying to come across as more of a psychological thriller here that's got, like, as you said, though, the setup of it is just horror, because I was getting sidetracked there a bit. I'm sorry. So she's got these tickets to go see this midnight showing. They show up, and as I was saying, I just thought it was going to be this thing where there's going to be a bunch of people there, because she's talking about it like it's a big event.
Right.
And they're having this big midnight showing, and then they show up there, and they're the only 2 people in the theater.
Yeah, they're the only ones there. And, it would have made sense to me had they, during the montage, somehow showing previous dates or something, and Robert Englund seeing this couple and fixating on them, and then somehow getting her the tickets. That would have made more sense to draw into the idea that they're at this thing, and he had given them these tickets, and it was after hours and stuff.
Or he did something where he watched their patterns and saw them showed up, fixated on them for some reason, and then made sure that they bought tickets and then destroyed the rest of the tickets or something so they couldn't sell anymore, or they made sure that there's nobody else there.
Or even, like I said, after hours, and if, without his manager even knowing that he was doing it. I mean, that would have made more sense.
Yes, because the manager knew they were doing this midnight showing.
Yeah, but I mean...
because there was a whole scene there where Robert Englund was setting up all of his gear to do all this thing that he was doing with making his little movie within a movie. And the manager is calling him, trying to find him, and he finally finds him. And Robert Englund's saying, "Oh, well, I'm sure the younger kid that's working there has got stuff he wants to do. Why don't you let him go? I will stay." And the manager even says directly, "Well, you'll have to stay through the midnight showing, the midnight event." So it was a known event, but they had nobody there.
Yeah. And so it made absolutely no sense. And
it could have worked too, though, the fact that Robert Englund was setting this up to happen to any kind of random couple. But there was no setup to where we saw his planning or what he was setting up to get ready to do.
Right.
So there was no connection on why it would be a random couple either.
Right. So there was no setup. There was no draw to why this couple was chosen. None of that. And that, to me, kind of makes for the rest of it not to make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, the movie itself is straightforward of what they're trying to go through there, and we're obviously being vague because we don't want to spoil it. So, in case you want to see it, for what all he's got going on here and everything, but there's
another thing that I felt too, to tie into even another movie, was that his character of Stuart, Robert Englund's character of Stuart, was very much like Cy from 1 Hour Photo. And very much kind of the awkward, trying to live through these movies that he has been playing and whatnot. And so
I thought that too. I thought that I had the exact same thought too. He did remind me of that character from 1 Hour Photo, and it was very close. But at the same time, they didn't go far enough to make it.
Yeah, he wasn't as creepy as Robin Williams played. Robin Williams did such a beautiful job with Cy, the photo guy, and
but like you were saying though, if they would have. They could have played up on him after doing this for so long, be caught up on living his life through the movies he's been watching or stuff like that, but they didn't set that up.
No, they didn't. They didn't set that up until the end, really. I mean, because it was very, to me, kind of reversed in the way that they pulled this storyline out. Had we gotten an idea that this guy was, not only fed up, but
mentally unstable.
And the fact that he was fixating on making a movie, not just projecting the movie and whatnot. And it was just...
as far as we know, the entire problem, because as Colleen said, there's no setup with him being unstable or anything like that. So the entire reason he's doing that is because he's pissed off that they're going to make him sell popcorn.
Mainly, yeah, that he's no longer allowed, because his manager kept telling him he's not allowed up in the projection room anymore, that he's been causing trouble because he didn't like the fact that the aspects were off, that, the things that used to be an art form of projecting movies, being in charge of the film, making sure, because I even remember going to a movie, I think it was Annie, and it was back when they did the reel-to-reels, and the movie exit, they didn't get the reels switched in time, and so everything was off for like a few seconds, and you saw the flippy flip thing of the projector reel, and back then it was kind of, the...
Is that the technical term?
Yes, that was the flippity flip. But back then it was like an art form that the projection runner was actually in charge of making sure that the movie runs smoothly. Anymore, you press a, as he put it, bloody button, and all is done.
So this movie's definitely got a message going on here. I think there's like one or two messages you could pick out of here as far as what this movie's trying to talk about. One is Robert Englund's character Stuart, and you talk about how you kind of got the message about how it weighs on older people's minds as they're getting aged out of these things, phased out of these jobs, forced out of these jobs because of changing technology and stuff like that. Then at the same time, you've got the message that theaters aren't what they used to be anymore because they're all going digital and it's all robotic and stuff like that. So you're taking some of the human element out of showing these movies and whatnot, which plays not one iota into the plot.
Right. And also, I think that the whole idea that this one couple is the lone couple in the movie theater also plays to the fact that less people are actually going to the movies anymore.
Yeah.
More people are sitting at home and watching them and, downloading and streaming it and watching Netflix rather than going to the theaters.
Exactly. I think you're exactly right there. Now this movie was written, directed, produced, edited, I think pretty much everything by this Phil Hawkins, who I am not familiar with. Really, I haven't seen, looking through his movie list, he's got a lot of UK films and TV shows under his belt there that I am just not familiar with. This movie, that is something weird that kind of threw me for a loop too, because they have Robert Englund here playing not an Englishman, but it all takes place in the UK.
Yeah, and every once in a while he would go in and out of a somewhat English accent, which was rather distracting too, because I hate that.
So, now then, we've got Robert Englund, who everybody knows, everybody loves, from his time doing V.
And
not Nightmare on Elm Street, V.
Yeah, V. I'm sorry, but there's something about Willie being the reluctant alien I just absolutely loved, and I loved his little curls and everything back then.
Now, I agree that he did slip in and out of his UK accent, which was distracting. So I don't know if he was supposed to be an expatriate over there, living over there, doing his thing, which I know happens. So I'm not trying to be that closed-minded American saying, they got America working in the UK. That can't happen. But other than his floating accent, I thought he was probably the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he played the bad guy in this well, and it was really nice, too, to see Robert Englund getting to show some range, because he did so many Nightmare on Elm Street movies as Freddy Krueger, which he was iconic, don't get me wrong, he was fabulous. But at the same time, for many people, that's all they know him as. So, and then as he got out of the nightmare stuff and the people started casting him in other B movies, he plays something still over the top. And
yeah, like Phantom of the Opera was one of my favorites that he was in. And again, it was very similar to his Freddy character. His character in Zombie Strippers, again, over the top.
Yeah, and I think it was Stan Helsing, he was over the top too.
And also in 2000 Maniacs remake.
Oh yeah, which and don't get me wrong, I love it when Robert Englund's over the top. It's great, but it was nice seeing him get to show range here, and I would have to think that he would enjoy it as an actor, because he was fairly subdued for Robert Englund.
Yeah, well, it was very similar to, like I said, Psy, the 1 hour. He was kind of quiet and kind of nervous.
He even kind of looked like him.
Yeah, he was dressed very similar in fashion, the button-up shirt. And, very kind of stiff. And I mean, I appreciated that, but at the same time, it was like, let's get into some action, because
it's a very dry character.
It's a very dry character, and then the movie itself, it takes so long for anything to happen, and in reality, nothing really happened.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of action going on in this throughout the whole thing. So then we get to the next person on the credited list here, Finn Jones, who was our lead in this, who I felt was bland as all get out.
Yes, he was very vanilla.
He was very vanilla. He had kind of one emotion throughout the entire thing. Not a whole lot of excitement out of him.
Yeah, he seemed very bored.
Yeah, he definitely seemed very bored. And this film came out in 2014, but if you look at the cast list too, I see, I was looking at her, Emily Brettons earlier, and this came out, I think they filmed this quite a bit earlier.
It came out in September, was it?
Well, I think that was when it was released. I think this was actually filmed, from what I saw, I think it was filmed a bit earlier, before like Finn Jones got into the whole Game of Thrones thing and whatnot. So, which happens all the time, but he was just not very exciting in this at all. And he's billed on this if you look it up on like on your rental service or anything like that. He's top billed on this as kind of a big draw. So that was kind of flat. And with this pace of this movie and with the writing and the story was very meandering. Took forever to get to any place they wanted to go. And with him not doing a whole lot over the top, when a good 40 minutes of this film focuses entirely on him, it makes for a dirge.
Yeah, I don't really see this as really a horror.
No, me either.
It was more of a psychological thriller, because when you think of horror, you think of something that's actually going to be scary. You usually think of things that there's going to be...
And to be fair, IMDb, it is listed on IMDb as a thriller too, so...
Yeah, it really wasn't...
But it also runs 89 minutes, and as we were talking about with the pace and stuff like that...
Felt longer.
It felt way longer. I think it would have worked better as a TV movie.
Yeah.
Cut down to like an hour, I think it probably would have worked better.
Oh, yeah.
But now we get to Emily Barrington, who is our other lead in this, and she was all right. She was unconscious for a good chunk of the movie.
Yeah, she.
In her defense,
she wasn't present for most of it.
But I thought she was good as far as acting goes. But at the beginning too, I think she was acting for an entirely different film than what she was in.
Yeah. Well,
she had a really strong rom-com thing going.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was again kind of forgettable. It really kind of was in the background more than of course, because Robert Englund seems to overshadow everything. And even, was it Malachi Kirby? Was that the guy that was the manager? I thought his portrayal was better.
It was. He actually stood out. He was more memorable throughout the entire thing too.
Yeah.
So because he's from EastEnders. Looking on there, a lot of people may know him from that. I don't know too much of his other stuff there. So, but he definitely was solid in that. Otherwise, most of the list, there's not a whole lot of cast in this. It's pretty much the majority of this movie is Robert Englund and Finn Jones, not even playing off of each other for the most part. There's only one or two scenes where they're actually with each other. Right. I got to think when they filmed this movie that most of these people were doing their filming alone.
Yeah. Yeah, they really didn't have to have all the actors on set at all.
Yeah, I'm thinking they had...
Except for just the one scene where they were all on in the same place.
there's one scene... There's two scenes with Robert Englund and Finn Jones together. And then there's one scene at the end with a bunch of cops and stuff like that. And other than that... So, I bet you anything they filmed most of that stuff in one or 2 days.
Yeah.
So, because the scenes that they did with Robert Englund and Finn Jones were very straightforward and nothing. I mean, they were focused on doors. Both of these scenes were focused on doors.
Yeah, they were.
So, all right, that is the last showing. It's floating around out there. You can rent it from Netflix and some stuff like that. Would you recommend anybody watch this?
Only if you needed, some downtime.
Yeah.
It was kind of a snoozer. I kept finding myself just losing focus on it. And
she's not lying, because I looked over at one point and she was reading her phone and I asked if she was even watching.
It really, I would give it maybe 2 out of 5. 2
out of 5, you think? Yeah. Yeah, I would probably too, because it just was not very thrilling for a thriller at all.
Yeah.
I just wish that they would have done something. This movie actually would have served better if Robert Englund was more over the top.
Yeah, it really needed. The filming itself was beautifully done. I thought the camera work was great, but the writing was subpar. The storytelling was really low, and it just, it didn't keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And it didn't build up. It didn't, give you that edge of your seat. Oh my gosh. It didn't make me nervous. It didn't make me need to get up and go into the kitchen to get myself something to drink.
Yeah.
Like, movies like May or 1 Hour Photo would, because they play on your, that tense feeling, that nervousness, and that uncomfortable feeling that
Yeah, you never feel like you have to come up
Yeah.
for air.
Yeah, so it really, yeah.
All right, then. That's it. That is our first episode, the last showing. Stay tuned here for a moment, and we'll be back with our outro, and we will let you know what we're watching next here on Cinema Fromage. Well, we hoped you liked that discussion, that first episode of Cinema Fromage. We had fun.
Yes, we did.
Good. You're giving me a look there. I was afraid that you didn't.
Well, you're giving me a look with your... You talk too much with your hands. I'm afraid you're going to hit me.
I got jazz hands.
You do.
People don't realize that. That's why I don't podcast with the webcam on normally, because then sometimes people can hear it in the recordings. I move a lot when I'm talking and recording.
Does.
So, but I'm an excited guy. What can you say? So that, again, is our first episode. If you'd like to reach out to us, leave us a comment, say hi to us, or anything like that, you could reach us by email at cinemafromage@gmail.com. You can find Colleen on Twitter at
HP Colleen.
and you can find me on Twitter at KCBGH. We'll be posting these episodes to iTunes, where you've probably listened to this now. We'll also have them on Podomatic, and we will post them on the Cinema Fromage site, as well as Bloody Good Horror, just to get the word around. So, our next episode, the official second episode of Cinema Fromage, is going to be one that Colleen and I stumbled upon this last weekend. I've had a lot of people hit me up on Twitter asking if I was going to watch it or if I'd seen it or anything like that. I hadn't even seen the trailer of it. I knew the name, but we watched the trailer this weekend and we got really excited.
We both said, ooh!
Actually, I think it was more like, holy shit, we got to watch that. So our next episode is going to be on The Houses October Built, from 2014, directed by Bobby Rowe. Beneath the fake blood and cheap masks of countless haunted house attractions across the country, there are whispers of truly terrifying alternatives. Looking to find an authentic, blood-curdling good fright for Halloween, 5 friends set off on a road trip in an RV to track down these underground haunts. And just when their search seems to reach a dead end, strange and disturbing things start happening, and it becomes clear that the haunt has come to them. Ooh. So yes, it sounds very good. It's very appropriate for the time of year. So look forward to that one. Until next time,
I'm Colleen.
and I'm Casey, and you've been listening to Cinema Fromage.